Hey everyone, so my name is Gavin and I'm here with 4 interns who are almost completed or just finished their internships at one of the big 4. As is, we do our best to bring you the skills and the knowledge to be successful in the industry, but we also want to help you find out if accounting is right for you. So here we have 4 interns who are going to bring their insight on what was it like completing their internship. And let's quickly introduce ourselves. So start off with you, Talha.
Hi guys, my name is Talha. I'm at KPMG. I just finished. Today was my last day. I started my internship in a rotation in risk consulting because at KPMG we have the summer rotational internship program where you do an audit and a non-audit rotation. So I was in risk consulting and I got a lot of cool experience that I might talk about later on. And then most recently I was in consumer industrial markets for my audit practice with my main client being Tim Hortons. So that's pretty cool.
Nice.
Good copy.
Shout out to Liz.
Shout out.
Hey everybody, my name is Akshay and I'm going into my 4th year. I'm a summer intern at Deloitte right now within their mergers and acquisitions transaction services group. Don't have an industry specification because our group is more product focused, but definitely been a really good experience so far, and I can touch on why I chose Deloitte in the group later on as we progress through this.
Sweet.
And my name is Vibhu. I'm also going into my 4th year and I work at PwC. And I'm in Team Dream, which is real estate and asset management. So
Dream Team.
Yeah, Dream Team. Well, they named it Team Dream, so it's not cheesy, but like Dream Team.
Oh, okay, I did.
Super cheesy.
I have a bunch of experience in pensions. So one of my largest clients was the Ford Motor Company of Canada. So hopefully I can talk about that.
Look at the camera. My name's Jason. I am going to 4th year as well. I am obviously at EY. Last day today as well, so that's pretty exciting. So I worked in the assurance practice in one of the groups there, private mid-market, PMM. So the clients I worked on were pretty much just kind of medium size or a range of private enterprise. Really interesting, I'll talk about it more, but I worked on some really big clients to some smaller nonprofit organizations. So it was a really great experience and I loved it.
Cool. So I guess the most important question, what was your expectation versus reality? So I guess we'll go around and start off with you, Jason.
Expectation versus reality in terms of the
internship. Like, what did you expect going in, and now your last day? Like, how? Like, looking at it in hindsight, how was it versus what you really expected?
Yeah, definitely. I guess it's fitting. That question's fitting for today, seeing it was like my last day in like retrospect and everything. So like the internship as a whole, I guess just going through the entire networking process over the years at school and just networking with all the representatives and recruiters there. They really sell to you, and this is for like all across the firm, just the culture of the firm and the experience of working there, working with other people, working in teams, that kind of stuff. So when they kind of laid that on the ground in terms in like workshops or any sort of presentation, you really kind of soak in all that about the firm and the culture. So I guess that kind of molded my expectation of what my internship would be.
Yeah.
So like going into my internship, I was expecting, I'm gonna like just chill with my friends and not chill and work with my friends too, and just like have a good time but work as well and really get a good feel of the social climate as well as the technical side of the internship. So I guess in retrospect, the reality was that for me, a lot of my clients actually weren't even at the office. So I would be like, for example, my first engagement, I went to Michigan with just one other intern. So I guess that whole social aspect was kind of stripped away right off the bat. Like I was able to obviously socialize with people who were on my team there.
Yeah.
But like I was just kind of working for an entire week in Michigan. So like I guess the reality, surprise, you do work in the States too. I guess the reality there is that the circumstances will be different depending on like what client you're on, or I guess the type of period you're working in. Yeah.
So Vibhu, you.
For me, definitely going in, I had the expectation that you would always like carry the tag of a summer student, and following along with that you wouldn't necessarily get a whole lot of responsibility, or you'd kind of be looked at as just you're here for the summer, then you're gone.
Right.
But the reality was completely different, and I think one story to go with that is the first client that I was put on. I went in and spoke with my senior, and the first thing he asked was, like, how long have you been working here as a full-time associate? And I was like, oh no, I'm actually a summer associate. So I think the reality is, from my experience personally, was that you're definitely not looked at as a summer associate. Like, you are looked at as someone who's a part of the firm, and in following along with that, like you are actually given responsibilities that someone who just joins the firm full time would actually do. So I thought that was like super interesting. Did not expect that at all.
That's pretty dope.
Yeah.
That's pretty dope. Akshay?
So, like definitely echoing what Jason and Vibhu said, just to add on top of that, one of my expectations was, so I'm in the M&A group, TS
Wait, and
group.
this is your second internship too.
This is my second.
So you had like an expectation of reality. Did you have like a second expectation or something?
So I think a lot of the stuff that Dave mentioned was like my first summer, as well as just the expectation to learn a lot.
Yeah.
And that definitely was reality in both scenarios.
Right.
The second summer at Deloitte now, well, I guess my expectation just within the group was I'd get a lot, like be doing a lot of technical stuff with deals,
Right.
Because our whole group is deal driven and we're doing a lot of the analysis on the buy side usually, but the reality was that not only did I get to do that, but there's so much other stuff that each of the groups has, and I'm sure these three guys can also talk to the fact that like whether you're in audit or like within an industry, like there's definitely opportunity to do things or that might be like outside of the typical definition of what you got hired on into.
Right.
So I had a chance to do some like almost integration consulting work, some commercial due diligence, as well as all the financial due diligence stuff we do typically in our group. So
Yeah.
it was just cool to get something outside of my expectations, but it's all great experiences overall.
For sure. Talha?
Yeah, I think I agree with all these guys. The one thing that I would add is I learned to expect the unexpected. And like in risk consulting, for the longest time I was working on a project as me, a senior, and then the management team. And I was helping out my senior. And then my senior left and he got pulled on to a different job. So now that was my job. I'm a summer intern and I'm dealing with 4 to 5 huge clients by myself. I was like crapping my pants. You know what? Like, I think it's important to realize that when you join the firm, you are a resource, and it doesn't matter sometimes what level you are necessarily, but when there's a job to be done, you need to do that job. And I think that is something that I realized, and it's pretty empowering.
That's actually quite scary. I think that's a great lead to our next question though, about the learning curve. I mean, everyone talks about this is something brand new. We're going our fourth year. We haven't even touched audit or tax or anything like that. So was it challenging at first? Like, do you even really know what you're doing even now, just finishing?
Okay, right. So I have two different perspectives about this, right? I have the risk consulting perspective
Yeah.
and the audit perspective. In terms of risk consulting, a lot of it is learning on the job. Like, you are reviewing prior year files, you're asking questions to whoever you can.
Yeah.
And it's a lot of self-learning. Whereas from my experience, at least in audit, like it's more team driven, right? So you're sitting with a whole bunch of different people and you can always ask them. Like me personally, on Tim Hortons, my team was 10 people. I'd be asking questions every 2 minutes when it happened, right?
Right.
So there's a lot more help, I think, when it comes to the learning curve in audit.
Yeah.
And like people understand, right? Because it's such a mechanical process that like they understand that they've been through it.
Yeah.
So people are very willing to help. So I think it's not too bad, but
Right.
you definitely get thrown in at full speed.
For sure. Akshay, your thoughts on like what was it like for you? I guess like you're doing something totally different than what you did last summer, right?
Exactly.
So what was it like for this type of work?
So yeah, like I exactly the same thing that Talha mentioned. So the summer before this, I worked in audit, and they're really good with the training programs. Like they really get you up to speed fast in terms of right at the start. We had 2 weeks of training in terms of just like the technical process of things, as well as just some ways to like navigate around the firm with technology and so on. So that was really good. This group was a little bit different because all that infrastructure wasn't really set up. So a lot of it was learning on the job.
Oh, yeah.
I thought that having done it in summer at the Big Four, like a lot of that like learning would carry with me, and
Yeah.
I definitely think it helps in terms of like you learn how to learn to some degree and know what you're looking for. But every summer you do, like you're learning subtle things too that is sometimes hard to communicate. Like for example, how to like take feedback or how to communicate with your team properly and keep like people informed throughout the process, and how to work with different people's leadership styles and everything. So that's just like some stuff that you like. There's a learning curve there as well that sometimes gets ignored that I just like to bring out. But
Absolutely.
Overall, like it's been manageable. It's not something that's so overwhelming that you can't cope with because the support network's so big. So.
I mean, they can teach you to be an accountant, but they can't really teach you everything else you just mentioned, right? How to
Exactly.
how to talk to people, how to build relationships.
Yeah.
So I think someone who's going into this, I don't think that that should be their biggest concern, the technical aspect.
Totally.
Because that stuff, there's someone there to help you, and there's always going to be a resource. So that's a common consensus, I guess.
Yeah.
For sure.
You notice that in the way they hire too, right? That's
Yeah,
a lot of
that's the emphasizing, right? Yeah, for sure. Jason, you mentioned culture, and you mentioned what EY expressed to you, and that's what created your expectations. So if you could tell us, what was it like? What was the atmosphere like? I know you weren't at the firm as often, especially with your client in Michigan and stuff like that, but what was it like working with people? Was it really that atmosphere that they expressed to you? What was it really like working with different students from different universities and stuff like that?
It was definitely interesting because going into EY, I thought I could kind of had the liberty to paint the entire firm with the same brush in terms of like how to describe and characterize this culture.
Right.
You know, the entire firm is characterized by, I guess, this way of describing this culture and whatnot. But then I realized because even though the entire firm is under like the EY umbrella, within the firm there are different groups in the insurance practice, and as a result, you'll notice if you kind of jump from one group to another, either from like getting experience yourself or talking to people who are in those groups, you begin to see that the different attitudes towards the work change, and the way they go about actually doing work from a procedural point of view, from a technical point of view. You know, the whole mental models around the teamwork in general as well. Right. For example, I was talking to another intern who is in FSO, the financial services group, and I was so surprised when he told me that the work he was doing there was so much more, I guess, demanding compared to the work like I was doing in PMM or other interns were doing in TAG, which is the Toronto Audit Group. And it just surprised me like how, just I guess in the general sense, like hours too, and that's the reflection of how a lot of the teams there, or the people there, the reflection of their attitudes towards the work. You know, if they have work to do, they will stay until late into the night to get that work done. Whereas in my group, I learned from being on teams there that it's alright to be more flexible with your hours there, and if you don't get something done like right away, you can kind of carry on to the next day and get it done on your own pace there. So like a lot of cultures, it's good. Like the cultures are going to be different from group to group within the firm. I found, and that's observable in so many ways. But what I mentioned is one of them.
So do you think, as an intern who wants to be part of the firm, do you think it's their due diligence to look into different groups to see not only if they fit into the firm, but do you think they fit into the different groups and stuff like that?
100%. Yeah. Just
really?
to add on another real quick. Yeah. I guess in retrospect, that's another thing I would have probably would have appreciated myself to do in the whole, I guess, due diligence process when
right.
Learning more about EY.
Right.
The culture, not just of the firm, but within the firm in the different work groups as well.
Yeah. So Vibhu, same question. What was the atmosphere at the firm? Don't hold back on the socials though.
Yeah. Don't know. I would say it's really dynamic and just super performance driven. Like it doesn't matter what work that you do, but there's always an expectation that like you do the work to the best of your ability.
Yeah.
And I think that being said, just being in insurance, which I'm in audit, the work isn't necessarily always the easiest, just in the sense that like you just need to sit down and plow through it. So I think in that sense, there's definitely kind of like an expectation that you do your work. But that being said though, it's sort of like at PwC at least, there's definitely like a work hard, play hard attitude where like most people, when it comes down to crunch time, like you kind of expect to just sit down and do your work. Not to say that that's a bad thing, but I'm just saying it's like you do need to actually like finish the work. And I think as well part of the atmosphere at PwC is there's lots of other ways to get involved to sort of bypass the fact that audit sometimes can be a bit monotonous. And I kind of like that a lot. So like what you were saying about the socials, as a summer intern, on Fridays, like we have socials. So today's a Friday, and I just came here from the social. So
cool. Sorry, we're kicking you back.
So you guys can tell me later.
Great. That's awesome. I guess the whole perspective of an internship is to give you like an inside look, and I guess did that change your long-term perspective? Did your goals before and your goals after? So actually, like, how did I guess now it's your second internship?
Yeah.
How did that change? I guess like your long-term goals. Like, where do you see yourself in 5 years? Was that something that you were thinking throughout your internship, or has that changed that in any way?
So yeah, it's something I definitely had in consideration before my internship,
Right.
And I would recommend that people try to look at the bigger picture when they're picking where they want to do their summers.
Right.
And it's why I actually picked my internships where I did, because they really give you a lot of opportunity to just try a lot of things while you're young, learn a lot. They're really big firms, right? So there's a lot of opportunity to do a lot within them, or within groups, as well as you'll see a lot of people have gone to very cool places from these firms. So in both perspectives, that's why I went down this route, because I knew that it would open a lot of doors for me in the future.
Absolutely.
With that being said, in terms of my 5-year plan, about a year ago I would have been able to definitively give you an answer.
Yeah.
Which is when I did my second summer. It's my first summer at audit, and I realized that things change really quickly, and you change a lot, and you'll always be exposed to different things. So that's part of the reason why I made this move. And now I don't really know exactly what's gonna happen in 5 years. The firm has a lot of opportunity within it, and there's a lot of opportunity outside as well.
Absolutely.
And it's hard to say what's going to happen then, but what I will say is in 5 years I just want to be in a position where I have I'm happy with what I'm doing and have the opportunity to try different things out, and that's what I definitely have at the firm right now. So
be open.
Exactly, yeah, just be open to experience. Try to keep the big picture in mind is one thing I have advice for, but I will definitely say, speaking from personal experience, that things will change. That's something to always keep in mind.
That's awesome. I appreciate
Wise
that.
words from Akshay.
So Talha, and yourself, same question. Has this internship, changed your perspective of how you see yourself 5 years ago, before and after, and how's it dawned onto you differently?
Oh yeah, you know what? The honest answer to where I want to see myself in 5 years is I don't know.
Right.
But there's definitely things I've learned throughout this internship that may help figure out where I want to be in 5 years.
Yeah.
I've realized, all the different opportunities. Before, when you're a student and you're recruiting, you get caught up in the CPA opens your doors into a million different things.
Yeah.
But I think when you join the firm, you realize what those million different things are.
Right.
And that is something that has been very interesting.
Yeah.
Internal networking with the firm, you realize what people have done and what there is that you can do.
Yeah.
And that's pretty cool. So it's not just if you don't like audit, that's fine, right? And if you like audit, that's awesome too.
Cool.
So there's so many different opportunities.
How do you learn about those opportunities though? Is it is getting an internship the only way, or how else would you advise someone to see outside? If you want to get your CPA but you don't want to do audit, how else would you learn about the opportunities out there?
Honestly, it's just talking to people. It's talking to people that have been there and that have done that. So it's easy within the firm because you talk to whoever you're working with, the people that are around you.
For sure.
But the best way to do it when you're going through the recruitment process is to ask as many people for coffees.
For sure.
Interacting with them, getting to know their story, and they'll help you out once you start talking to them.
For sure.
One thing I'm just going to add to that is within our Schulich community is where you can learn a lot of this from. So I learned about the group that I'm in right now through someone who's in the financial advisor group at Deloitte, which is the CPA stream outside of audit,
right.
Who's a year above me. So I just recommend talking to people within audit, talk to people from different groups, different firms, and Schulich's just a great place to start.
Sweet, man. I really appreciate that, guy. I guess this is this is for all of you. Do you feel getting an internship puts you ahead of the game? I mean, people, get bogged down about not getting an internship, and I think that's what a lot of people aspire for. But do you feel that now, looking back, I guess you, Jason, and Talha just finishing, do you think that put you ahead of the game? I guess in the long run.
Okay, in the long run, perhaps it's not incredibly influential, right? I think if you don't get an internship, you shouldn't see that as being the end of the world.
Great.
But at the same time, I think getting an internship does put you a little bit in advantage.
Right.
Simply, part of the reason being, you've done a summer, so you've worked for, however, 2 to 4 months, so you know the people, right? So when you start full time, you have a support network already that you've worked with, right? Versus someone that's joining full time and they've never worked within that group.
Right.
You have to go through that process of getting to know the people, getting to know the processes, the system.
Learning the game.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Right. But other than that, I'm not sure if not getting an internship would be anything to.
Your thoughts, guys?
Stress about.
Sure. Oh yeah.
I think that the answer to the question depends on how you define what the game is. So if your definition of the game is returning back to the firm, then it does give you an advantage because you've worked a summer at the firm, you've had the chance to network with people at the firm, and it just increases your face time. So it really just increases the likelihood of you returning. But if you view the game as like your career, like what you want to achieve as far as long-term goals are concerned, I don't necessarily think that having an internship at a firm necessarily puts you ahead of the game, just because, again, Big Four, it's just 4 firms, and there's so many other opportunities out there, so many different places that you can work.
Yeah.
I know people who've literally traveled all summer, and like I speak with them quite often, and just the things they tell me, like the experiences they've gone through by just traveling alone is, like, it's really interesting, and I feel like it definitely did help them as far as figuring out what they wanted to do. So
sure.
I think if you look at it that way, it's not necessarily puts you ahead of the game.
Oh, I like that.
I just want to add on a tiny little piece of opinion there. So absolutely, I completely agree in terms of you have that extra time, I guess, to really cultivate that internal network within the firm. So I guess coming in full time, you already have that footing, that support system kind of already established. But in my opinion, the degree of how far ahead of the game you're put from the internship is highly contingent on how well you're able to use it to your advantage. Because like I know interns who, they worked the internship, but they didn't leverage that opportunity in and of itself to really take advantage of that time that they had compared to someone who might not have had it, who will be joining full time.
Right.
So it's
totally
largely resting on that too.
Akshay, your thoughts on that?
Alright, so 2 points to this. One is, I think that the internship puts you like really like it just gives you a lot of advantage in terms of the game for like your own game, because the internship's your opportunity to just try something without like being full time,
fully committed.
Exactly, right? And the reality is that you're gonna sometimes try things that you thought was like exactly what you wanted it to be,
right,
and isn't what you thought it would be, right? When you go back to expectations versus reality.
Exactly.
And like for me, I got a chance to do an internship in what I thought I would really wanted to do, and like just personally, it never ended up being like what I'm gonna do full time. And because I was an intern, I was able to learn from that experience and make that transition.
Yeah,
so
that's really
this is outside of Big Four too. Just to introduce in general, a great learning experience and give you opportunities to try things that you think you might be interested in.
Cool.
And then in terms of just the actual like game, we'll just talk numbers here.
Yeah.
If you're really interested in Big Four, for all those people who are watching this in first and second year, like you want to get into this early, because in a numbers basis you have a lot more intern hires into these firms at like the 3rd year level and sometimes the 2nd year level than you do at the full time.
Right.
So if you're just talking strictly stats, those are the streams you ideally want to be like push for. Mind you, people do get hired full time as well. It's just if this is what you want to start ahead of time.
Absolutely agree. I guess to wrap this up, I was just hoping I could ask you a question for all of you. I guess, what was your most valuable takeaway? It could be, was there a moment where like it all made sense, or was there a moment where it didn't make sense at all and you kind of like realized, something else? So if you guys want to, talk about that, your most valuable takeaway.
I'll take the bull by the horns there.
Okay.
So as you're saying,
there's a bullpen, right, at UI?
Yeah, there is.
Okay. I caught you on that one.
Okay. So yeah, I say that my biggest, I guess, learning experience, or the biggest thing I learned, did come from the times where, truthfully speaking, things didn't make sense to me, and I guess simply put, my most valuable experiences were just simply like learning more about myself from a personal perspective. It's like cheesy and cliche that might sound,
That's okay.
but definitely we're very cheesy. Where is the cheese, by the way? Just learning a lot about myself in terms of like where I see myself fitting in within the firm, within the firm from the perspective as like it being an organizational structure, with the hierarchy and everything, and not so technically speaking as well, but fitting in on teams as well, like how you interact with people in the groups, in the teams, and along the way I've like worked with people that unfortunately, sometimes you're just not compatible with those people, even though you might put in that effort to really strive to create high-performing teams by building those relationships. Sometimes that's not always going to be the case, and as a result, you gotta figure out ways to really push through with your work and be successful while dealing with those problems that will inevitably arise at certain times. So, Yeah.
Cool. Vibhu.
My biggest takeaway was that your future and your career, like it's in your hands. It's up to you to decide what you want to do and to go out and get it. And it might seem funny coming from someone who's finishing up the summer here, like, wow, you kind of realize that right now after you went through all of recruiting. But it's actually ironic because finishing a summer term at PwC was exactly what kind of made me realize that. It's the fact that your future is exactly what you want it to be. And it's up to you to kind of decide what that is and go out and get it. And it's like what we've all been talking about. That includes things like networking, reaching out to people, what Talha said about asking people out for coffees and stuff like that. So
Yeah.
I think my takeaway is just that, like, find out what you want to do and go out and get it and like talk to as many people as you can.
Just do it.
Yeah, just get
Do it. I think Akshay, man, your biggest takeaway.
So, like before you said that, I was literally gonna say the same thing. On how there's like so much opportunity within these places, but it's not for everybody. Like there's certain opportunities that are limited, and you have to go for them. So that's like number one, because this firm is huge and things are always coming up, but like just know what you want and push that. But just to not copy, like just add something else to the discussion.
Bring value to this.
Yeah. I would say that while work is very important in terms of learning and just doing well within the firm, and you have to get the work done. But so one thing I learned through this is that doing well is so much more other than work when you're at a Big Four, and like that's like just really heavily emphasized on the people. So just having like those coffees, just being a good person to work with, having a good dynamic just within your teams, and getting along with people in that sense, just that overall interpersonal skills and ability is so important, and I would say equally as important to the work. It actually makes the work a lot easier as well. So because you have a sport back, you know like who to go to, and there's the people who are very, very good performers, but still will get held back sometimes in promotion or not get that early promotion because they're lacking on some of the other areas. And having seen the evaluation process of two different firms, it's actually a component of it in terms of how you get ranked and like where your development points are. So just emphasize on.
Appreciate that. Talha, your biggest takeaway.
Yeah. I think, like, to your original point, I don't know if anything in life ever completely makes sense.
Yeah.
But I
That was
think
deep.
the biggest takeaway for the internship is the internship, like your career, your life, it is what you make of it,
Yeah.
right? And I think that's very important. I think sometimes when people, get something, they become kind of like, they become mundane in what they do sometimes.
Granted, take it for granted and stuff.
Right, and you want, like, if you want something, you have to go out and get it, right? And that goes for the internship. Like, if you want a client, you have to make your voice heard, right? If you want to switch industry groups, like you have to make your voice heard, right? Because you have to look out for yourself at the end of the day, and like you always have support, but you have to make yourself heard, right? And on that same note, people like during your internship, you want to be the person that's always, proactive, that's asking for work. Because I've seen numerous people, be satisfied with sitting in their cubicle and, being relaxed and not doing too much.
Right.
But then I've seen those people that, are always knocking on partner doors, manager doors, asking for work, and those are the people that, in my opinion, are really, taking their careers to the next level.
So never stop being hungry is what you're saying.
For sure.
Yeah.
Which one are you?
Well,
I guess we'll save that for the next video.
Take 2 for episode 2.
Oh, cool. So I just want to thank you guys so much for doing this. I know that the SAS members will really find this beneficial and really help them for this upcoming recruitment season. So just thank you guys again.
Thanks for having us.
Thanks,
worries,
Gavin.
No worries, no worries.
Pleasure.
No worries. See you, buddy. See you, buddy. Bye, guys.
If you